Hello, hello, and welcome to the More Than Mindset show. Got it. Sorry, I'm trying to get all of this, all of my ducks in a row from my end and make sure that everything is recording and ready to start. All right, guys. Accept that we are recording this. We are here live today talking about human design, generators, and manifesting generators. So there's a combination of us here, and we are sharing our experiences, our real life experiences of just learning about human design and what changes have taken place in your relationships, your relationship with yourself as well as with other people. So I'm just going to kind of go down the row. I'm looking Danielle, then Peggy, then Erin, and I'm just going to ask a couple of questions. And the first one is, Danielle, would you like to introduce yourself?
Okay, I would love to. I will respond by introducing myself.
Yes.
My name is Danielle Paradin. I'm a style and life coach. I'm also a pharmacist, mom of three, married. I don't know what all you'd like to know, but yeah, so I'm trained as an integrative life coach through Kim, and I have been using human design, trying to discover my own design in my own life, discovering it, how to use it with my children and also my clients. So I've been having fun. So I'm so happy to be on this call with the other generators, manifesting generators. So I am a 6-2 manifesting generator.
What is with your emotional authority, right?
Emotional and to respond. That's my strategy. Yep.
All right. Thank you. Peggy.
Hi, I'm Peggy Fontenot. I'm an integrative spirituality coach trained by Kim. I am also a retreat leader and 5-1 generator, leader, investigator. Wait to respond is my strategy, and solar plexus emotional is my authority. I had no idea how much of an impact human design would make on my life. I'm realizing that I've been manifesting all of my life, but had no idea that I was manifesting or what that even meant until very recently. I'm extremely happy to be on this call and looking forward to having this conversation. Thank you.
Peggy, you're a manifesting generator or a generator?
Manifesting generator.
So you're an emotional manifesting generator.
Yes.
So is Danielle. And Erin, you and I are a little bit different. So what I was trying to do is get a variety of us, because some people get confused with like as if generator and manifesting generator were two separate things, but we're all generators. It's just the manifesting generator is like got the 2 for 1. So it's just a little bit of tweaking, in the conversation. So what, Erin, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, I am Erin Atkinson, and I am a certified life coach. And I specialize in self-empowerment and self-love. I'm a 2-4 generator with sacral authority, and I have 4 kiddos, married. And I love helping people remember who they are, just to find their power again. Remember, it's all inside of them.
Mm-hmm. So I'm Kim. I am a 6-2 off the roof generator, an emotional generator. And I think the only thing we have missing is if we would have had a manifesting generator with sacral authority. I think would have made it a little bit different. So that's really what I wanted this conversation to be around is we're all generators, but how do we function differently according to like our design? And also what has been your personal experience when you've been experimenting with the design, like just sitting back and watching all of the changes and being able to respond, or shall I say, react differently than what you've been taught? And have you noticed like how the conditioning has played a part in your life, in your health, in your relationship? So those are the sorts of things that we're going to talk about. So I'm just going to open the conversation with Danielle. When you first heard that you were supposed to be responding, and that you were a generator, what was your biggest takeaway, or what have you discovered? Like, I know it was all foreign when you first heard it, but now you've been playing around with it for a couple of years. So how would you tell someone else what was your experience like?
Yeah, sure. So I think at the beginning, I was a little bit relieved because I always felt like, so I'm a 6-2, so I'm a little bit reserved, my 2 line, the hermit. And I felt that like I was always the one that had to go out and try to get people to connect or to go and to do something. I love collaborating and doing all those things. when I found out that I had to respond, it took a load off of me. It felt like I could take a deep breath, relax, kind of wait for some things to come to me instead of constantly trying to make things happen on my own. And then also knowing that in the past, when I was trying to make things happen on my own out of nothing, then if they didn't work, it wasn't because I was a failure. It's just I was out of my strategy and authority.
So it was a relief. That would be your.
Yes, it was a relief. It was a relief knowing that, okay, actually you could take a deep breath, sit back for a little bit, just see what's coming to you. And I noticed that I would get a lot of invitations. I got so many invitations to go on podcasts. So when I first started marketing my business, I loved collaborating. I loved connecting with the other pharmacists that are doing some big things, and put myself out on LinkedIn. And instead of going in people's inboxes and saying, hey, do you want to have me on your podcast, or do you want to do something together? I would, introduce myself, just be myself. And then they would ask me, they would, give me an opportunity. Hey, I have this podcast. Do you want to be on it? I'm like, sure, I'd love to.
Yay. So fun.
Yeah, so that was really fun.
So different from the white knuckling and the pushing and the making it happen. Go out and manifest everything that you've ever wanted and dreamed about, right? How about you,
Yes,
Peggy?
and that was very frustrating. So
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut over you. You said it was frustrating?
yes, pushing and white knuckling was very frustrating to me. So I was glad to let that go.
Nice.
Mhm.
Peggy, how about you? What's your story?
Yeah, so similar to Danielle's, I was taught like to respond immediately. And so to wait to respond was very difficult for me. And but I realized that in not waiting to respond, not knowing that that was my strategy, that I would just say yes. I was a yes person. And then I would be in the thing that I said yes to, and it was like, this is not what I thought it was. This is not satisfying. And the word satisfaction is part of that being a generator and part of my 5-1. And it's like, oh, like now I can check myself and say, is this satisfying to me? And if it is, then I'm in alignment. And when it's not in alignment and I'm not satisfied, I can give myself permission to get out of it. So that was one of the biggest things for me. And, waiting for my emotional wave. First, I didn't even know that it was okay to have emotions. I was shut down at age 6. So then to realize that, oh, yes, it's okay for me to have emotions. And then I need to be willing to ride the emotional wave, like going to the high and going to the low and then coming into the neutral. Is still an ongoing process and practice, because I find that since I've turned my emotions on, they come really quick. There's like, yeah. And then I'm like, wait a minute, let me look at the other side. And I give myself that time for that. Yeah, I'm not too sure about it. And then I give myself a little bit more time. And throughout the months of practicing that, like I'm realizing that I'm more clear, more quickly now than I was before. And so that's been like the immediate biggest difference that I'm noticing, knowing to wait to respond and to ride my emotional wave.
And that the answer is going to be so much easier once you give it that time.
Yes. Yeah. And it's more clear and it's more like the fact. It's like I'm not, even though like we're still just 80% sure, my 80% sure is 80%, whereas before I wasn't never sure.
It's really interesting because when you enter into a relationship or a yes, whatever the thing is, however you entered into that. So if it were pressure and wishy-washy, that's the life of that circumstance. And then we're like scratching to get out of it. So when we can learn how to depend on our strategy and authority before getting into it, we can save ourselves a lot of trouble.
That's for sure. I agree with you.
But maybe we have to experience it on both ways for it to make sense. Who knows, right? I think it's just an experiment for all of us. And what I love about these conversations is to be able to share, like, what have you tried or what have you noticed or what, and then it gives us all ideas, of kind of playing around with it and taking that pressure off. So
speaking of that, Kim, like I noticed that because I was always a yes or no person immediately, when I started waiting to respond in relationships, when I would be invited to something, it was like, what do you mean you have to wait? Like, why can't you just tell me right now? It was like, like the relationships were changing because I wasn't that yes person all the time.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
You're changing your identity
yes,
with yourself on how you react, respond, how you live, and how you're evolved in relationships. So you remember whenever we used to do the challenge when we were first doing coaching, and it was like, don't excuse, don't rationalize, don't explain, don't justify. It's very much like that, wouldn't you say? The
yes,
experience of
very
waiting.
much so. Yes.
That exercise by itself is so uncomfortable.
Yeah, people want to know why I have to wait, and it's like, I just need to wait. I'm just not ready to answer right now.
But we're used to you answering. Tell me.
Yes.
So good. Erin, how about you? What was your experience? So your sacral authority, just to be clear here, Danielle and Peggy and I are all emotional. So we have to wait through a wave. Erin's is going to be a little bit different.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I'm the only sacral in my family. Everyone else is emotional. So it's pretty interesting in this home. But yeah, mine really, like, I went from being a complete people pleaser to try to get love, to try to please people, that I completely shut off my gut and what was right for me. So I just learned to operate from my brain and what can I do to make them happy? What can I do, to make people proud? It was always operating from my brain. And I really had a hard time when I first found human design, even connecting back to my gut. I had to learn to get back into my body because I learned to get outside of it and just to operate straight, from the cerebral. And so it was really getting back into my gut. And one of the most interesting things that I found is with food and body is when I eat what I truly want, even if it's not the best, my body responds so much better. It's like if I'm on a diet or if I'm eating really strict and I don't love what I'm doing, my body will retain water. I'll bloat, all of that. Even with working out, it's like when I do the workouts that I love, my body responds. And so that was very interesting. And it was really fun to watch that happen because now I'm just operating from what feels fun, what feels like joy, you know what I mean? So it's not that pain anymore. So those were some of the biggest things that I noticed.
I love this part with you, like that you brought that up because this is your specialty in coaching because of your experience. Could you speak about that? Like before you knew about this and how you were responding in the world and what was created from that? Like, are you piecing that together? Like what an impact it had made on the eating disorders? And would you like to share that?
And it's a full circle moment because it's like everything that I went through, like I've come back to this place. You know what I mean? So it's really interesting. But even, when I was coaching in the beginning, I was even trying to help them, create a diet and create this and create that. And I had to get to a point where I'm like, we're throwing it all out. We're going to operate from what do you love? What do you want? You know what I mean? Not like what I think is going to be best for me to get the results. It was like we threw away the results. And what are we going to do out of joy and out of just for the fun of it? And it completely changed. It's like they got the results that they wanted. So yeah, that was really fun. And just like a breath of fresh air, like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? I spent 20 years, like, because I had an eating disorder for, almost 2 decades. I spent 20 years, like, struggling and trying and, with like banging my head against the wall and doing these horrible things to myself. And it's like, if I just operate from what really sounds good, like, what do I really want? And gave myself that, my body completely, I wouldn't have had to go through that. But again, if I didn't go through that, I wouldn't know what I want, what I know now. Right. So
I know that's the tricky part. Darn it.
yeah.
Can we learn without the suffering?
Yeah.
So one more question. When do you think you were overriding your sacral knowing when you were doing
100%.
all of the diet stuff? Like what? So if you were speaking to a room of people who were in that, like in the eating disorder or the trying to find the right diet or eating stuff that they don't like or don't want, or like, what would you tell them that you discovered?
Well, first of all, I think I was so detached that I didn't even have sensations really happening in my body that I knew of because I was in so much pain and I was so numb. So it's really about them learning to trust themselves again, them learning to know that it's safe getting back inside of their body and starting to feel the sensations and starting to feel the little whispers and the nudges and trust that. So, I mean, you know, it's one of those things that you got to do the work of getting back in the body, because most of my clients are not. They're operating from fight or flight. Their nervous system is completely dysregulated. So it's about really regulating that nervous system, breathing, you know, learning to get back in the body, and then starting to feel that. And oh my gosh, you know, kind of go from there. So.
Love that. I think this is what Peggy was talking about a few minutes ago, right? Peggy, is this the same?
Yeah.
It was like not having permission or being told not to feel and then turning that off. You said when you were 6?
Yes. Yep, that occurred going into the graveyard when my grandfather died, and I was crying. And my father turned around and said, "We don't cry." And I just sucked it up. Didn't cry. Didn't laugh either. Didn't do anything.
Danielle, can you relate?
Yeah, so it's funny. I just had a conversation over the summer with my mom. I was at a retreat and I called her, and I had just realized that anytime I had felt really sad or had any grief, like I had to like hold it in as much as possible. And it was so painful. And sometimes even whenever I would cry, if I was by myself, I would cry, but no sound would come out. So it was just like this anguish, like wide open mouth, and no sound would come out. And I remember whenever I was little, I remember once cutting my head, and I even have like a scar and it was bleeding. And I didn't want to tell anyone. I didn't want to show that it was hurting. And I've had a situation when I was in grade school where a little boy punched me in the stomach several times. And he was so mad because I would not cry. I refused to cry. And so I'm not sure if it started then or before then, but I just asked my mom recently. I said, you know, did I ever tell you about that story when the boy punched me? And she said, no. She said, you never cry. You never would tell us when you were sad. And I was like, that's so interesting. Where did I pick that up from? But now that I'm able to process emotion, like I just feel so much like, again, relief. I feel more of myself. I feel more connection with other people. My relationships are growing. My mom and I, like I always said, that we didn't have these deep conversations when I was growing up. You know, there were 7 kids and we didn't talk about feelings. It was just like, you're good. You know, everything's good. Okay. Do anything. And that was it. But now we're able to have these more meaningful.
Is she frozen for you guys?
Yes. My husband, and then also with my children.
So we'll talk about like just the generator, like just in general. And now that you're practicing responding, whether it's with the or which is Erin. Erin, can you relate to that? Is that,
Yeah.
Are you using that? The
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the difference with like Peggy and Danielle, and having like getting that first yes or no, and then having to ride to that wave and all of the anguish that comes with the waiting. So I'll first ask the emotional authorities. How has that, Peggy, you've talked about it, but like for both of you in general, how has that changed the relationships that you do enter into and the things that you do say yes and no to? Either one of you can go first.
Yeah, I can speak to myself because I get really excited at first whenever I get, you know, asked to do something with someone, and I'm usually like, yes, it's, you know, I want to do this, and then I want to do this. I feel like I had the squirrel brain, you know, I was jumping to every opportunity that would come my way. But then the low would hit, and I'm like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? You know, how am I going to get myself out of this? They're going to be upset. So then I'll just suck it up and just keep it, you know, keep doing the same thing for a long time. What I've learned now is to really listen to that, to let that wave ride through all the way, knowing that I'm never going to be 100% clear, but at least, you know, okay, if I'm excited about this, let it at least drop and see what's going to be the low. When is that going to happen, right? If that's a big commitment, that's what I do, especially if it's, getting into this contract with someone. But as far as like making daily decisions, it's gotten even easier for me. So because I know like, so I love to shop, and whenever it could be anything I'm shopping for, whenever I'm shopping, I got to touch the thing. I got to feel the thing. When I'm clothes shopping, I like to shop by myself. And I always felt kind of guilty about that, but I don't want people rushing me because I don't know, like, it's kind of like this feeling, emotional kind of decision, even though if it's, a candle, I can see where it could be frustrating for people, but I've learned like, okay, I don't have to like be all emotional about this candle. I actually have to know that this is where it's coming from. This is why it's taking me this long to decide. And it doesn't have to be so serious. I could just pick it or not.
Is there a pressure like you need to hurry up and decide? And then
Yeah, so I feel the pressure if people are with me. So I like to go shopping by myself.
And we just went shopping Friday, by the way. And so she does touch everything. Like she would, like I put something on and she would touch me. Like she would.
Yeah, I have to touch it. I have to feel it. I have to, and then I'll like pick stuff up and then I'll put it back on the rack and then I'll go back and get it. And so that can be really frustrating to other people. And so if I'm shopping with others, I will feel the pressure and I'll buy stuff and then have buyer's regret.
I'm going to come back to you on this one, Erin, because I want to get your feedback with living with a house full of emotional people. Once Peggy, so remind me, that's what I'm going to be asking you. And coincidentally, you end up in a room exactly the same. So that's really cool. Peggy, what about you?
Yeah. So the word pressure, I have always felt pressured to say the yes or to say the no. And practicing riding the wave now, giving myself permission for me personally, just to release the pressure from myself, because it seemed to be impossible. I wasn't even like clear that I could have permission to release the pressure. Like if someone asked me something and they were looking at me, it was like, yes, or like, no. And then I was like, do I say no or do I say yes? And it was having to make a decision like in a split second. And so the waiting allows me to release the pressure. And fortunately, because of COVID, like I'm not in the presence of too many people, like it's all on the telephone. So I'm not feeling their stuff and reading their faces and thinking, oh, I gotta say yes, because I can see that look in their face, So it's been a great release for me to wait, to respond, and to ride that emotional wave. I was thinking, this morning about the generator and being the builder and how I've spent my whole life building and just holding on to the building. It's just like, because I couldn't decide what to do with it. It's like, and now that I've been waiting and I've been reviewing all the things that I've built, I'm able to activate some of those things. And it's like, it's just been so much fun activating all the building I've been doing for 20, 30 years. Because now I know that there is no pressure. I can just give myself time. And when the time is right, I know it. And it brings so much satisfaction.
It's so interesting that we have been conditioned to that pressure to achieve, to be something, to do something. And it's almost like a joke. Like, like trying to find the badge of honor, like leaving the legacy, being the one who does the thing. It's just experience. Like it's, take a load off.
Yes.
Okay, Erin, I want to know the stories living in your house with having all of these, because my favorite story, like when I talk about my husband who's sacral, is when we go to eat somewhere, so he decides on the moment. Like he knows what he wants before we go there. He like decides and he just tells them. And I'm like, what's your favorite? So what do most people order around here? And what did they get? What's at that table? And it drives him crazy. And so I was like, we just make sure that if we are eating Italian, that they're serving bread and butter and drinks. And if we're eating Mexican, they're going to have chips and salsa. And that's how I buy time. So what have you done with your sacral authority and then having all of these wishy-washy people around you?
Oh my goodness. Well, I still have so much conditioning around it. So first I have to remove myself, like literally put myself in another room to know, is this mine or is this the other 5 people that I got in the house, right? Because our house, it's not quiet. Like we're intense. We're, we love hard, but we can fight pretty hard too. And so I have to first know if it's mine, but yeah, just kind of just letting them go through it and knowing that they're not going to be in it very long. And that when they first initially react to something, just give them a good, couple hours. My husband sometimes needs about a day, and then they're going to have a completely different like feeling and, everything around it. So it really takes awareness. And again, breaking down my conditioning because I have a lot of like how people should be, right? And blah, 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 blah. And so it's just for me to really understand that and let them be who they are. You know what I mean? So that's really kind of what we got going on here. And
She
so
does
usually when
Good job describing us.
I don't know. I don't know. That's just kind of what it feels like. But when it comes to just a quick decision in the moment, they're like, Mom, because my gut will tell me really quickly. But I really have to, I've had to learn to tune back into that, because I would hear my gut response, like I would know, but I would still make the opposite decision because I wanted to please.
Yeah.
And so I would deny myself and just like, oh, it's fine. I'm fine. I don't need it. You know what I mean? But I've learned that when I make the best decision for myself, it's best for everyone because there's no manipulation. And then it puts whatever back for them to deal with, or you know what I mean? So it's just telling the truth and being honest is like the best thing, but it's sometimes hard. So
would you have, before learning about human design, if you were to describe your children and your husband, would you say that it was a bit moody? Like with the way you say, like, if I just wait a little while, then it'll change. Is that something? Because I find that something I've been accused of by my husband. It's like he would come in and try to make a joke, like, let's see who you are today. Let's see who I'm coming home to. And it would, oh my God, it would make me so mad because I'd already had these diagnoses of depression and bipolar and all the stuff that the emotional people get labeled as. And then he was adding on to that, by saying, I don't know who I come home to from day to day. I never know who you're going to be today. And it was a huge problem in our relationship. So I'm just curious if that's something that you experienced.
Yeah, so it's interesting because, and I think also because I was checked out for a long time, I was accused of those things, being like, I don't know who I'm going to come home to. You're emotional, you're moody, da, 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 da. And I think it's just because I didn't know who I was, right? And also with a lot of open centers, you take on other people's stuff. Like you can feel their stuff. And when you don't know who you are and don't have that good sense of who you are, it can feel just really chaotic, So mine really, I mean, I can't give you a good answer for that because I was checked out for so long that I didn't really know what was going on until the last few years. So yeah, so I'm just playing in the new stuff right now. So
I wondered if it was like he's open emotional and he just would feel what was going on with me. And then there was the projection feel that was coming from that, kind of back and forth. And I think that's what's so interesting about learning more about your design and your partners or people that you're in relationship with. And it's not to label it, to put them in a box or any of that stuff. It's really just to understand that we are unique beings, but we expect everyone to be like us. And I bring in human design just to show that, to prove that. I don't know if it's 100% accurate for everyone. We already know that that's impossible, right? But it's information that we can inquire. It's like a holistic approach to self-discovery. That's how I see it. It's questions. And then you can yep, that feels good. Nope, that doesn't. Oh, hell no, I'm not doing that, right? I'm not going to wait for someone to invite me. I'm going to invite myself. Like that's what a projector would say, right? So, but for the generators in general, we know we're builders and we know that our role is to respond. But when we start bringing in these other little pieces, it doesn't change that you're here to respond. It just brings in a different dynamic. So you do respond, but maybe over time. You do respond, but in the moment. You do. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I wanted to bring in several people who we could say that, because the mind will instantly want to put everyone in a box. So you'll be like, oh, well, my husband is a generator. And then you'll start trying to put them in. And we're like, no, like you really, every design is different. Every design is unique. And then we have our experiences and our conditioning and our environment and the message that we received as children on top of all of that. And then what we received from our partners and the relationships that we got into before we knew what the heck we were doing. And we said, yes. Does anyone, we're just going to freestyle for the next few minutes. Does anyone want to share anything in particular on your experience? What's been the biggest aha, or what you would like someone else to know?
So for me, the word manifesting, when I read that I was a manifesting generator, it's like, no way, I haven't manifested anything ever, was my thought, you know. And I've been playing around with manifesting. What does it mean? How does it happen? And just recently, in the last couple of weeks, I've realized that I've been manifesting like all of my life, but didn't have a clue as to it was being manifested. And now that I'm aware, it's like I set that intention or I take the actions, and I'm not like goal oriented as to I want to manifest this blue car or this purple dress or anything like that. It's just I'm doing the work, I'm moving forward, I'm taking the steps, taking the action, and all of a sudden, it's like the thing that I was thinking I wanted to manifest is here. And it's like, how did that happen? And I'm not clear on how it happened, other than the fact that there's this energy field that Kim talks about, the quantum, and I haven't really thought about that. And this week, it's like, oh, that's what this is. Like it's quantum. There's no time. So I had a thought 25, 30 years ago, and yesterday it happened. And it's like, but it's quantum time. What is time? You know, and so I'm like enjoying the fact that there's this manifesting energy within my building, and I'm playing around with it. Playing is like so amazing, because one of my first assignments when I started coaching with Kim was, you know, I was very stressed out about all the tech. And then she said, oh, well, just relax. This weekend, go and play. I'm like, no, I'll work on the tech. You know,
I hate tech, but it's easier than playing.
Yeah, I had no idea how to play. And like, you know, and in this manifesting, realizing what it is play, and it's fun.
And so I'm just going to add on to this for the manifesting generators. For those of you who are listening, they typically have a lot going on at one time and skip steps and have been corrected for it. And so they've been told to finish something and not do a whole bunch of things at one time. And I was listening to, I was on a call the other day, and there was someone there, and we were talking to a manifesting generator, and she was kind of like giving the advice of like what to do to avoid that. And I'm like, oh, that's conditioning. Like you should avoid who you naturally are, and you should go do this way so that you don't skip. I was like, this is it. This is what we're talking about. Like this was a prime example. So the manifesting generator moves faster, right? And they'll do things for you. So they might have to go back and redo some of those steps. And the cool thing about manifesting is we're all manifesting all of the time. We're just very often manifesting what we're thinking that we don't want. And that is the problem. Whenever I just did that thing on the law of attraction. And that's really what I was discussing. It's like the law of attraction is you think it, you feel it, and it will come. Now we have to wait for linear time. There's quantum time, there's linear time. And so it's taking time, but we're so stupid negative that by the time it's getting close, then we're going to the spin of it's not happening or it's not happening fast enough. And then we actually move it away from us. And so we are manifesting, all of us, all of the time. I mean, this is the Abraham Hicks message, right? It's like making sure that if you start feeling that lull or that low, that you start like coming back up. And it's just by thinking about desiring what you do want and experiencing in advance. And that instantly brings it up like what you're saying, Peggy. And then here it comes, it's coming. And we don't even know where it came from. And Danielle and I were talking about this earlier, like right before we hopped on the call, actually, about like that waiting, like for her in particular. We were just talking, we had a call before this, And it's like there's that deep, rich knowing and being sure, and then feeling like we have to hurry up and go tell someone or hurry up and go do it. And as emotional, it's like really waiting and waiting and waiting and letting it transmute. And then something will happen inside of us. And then all of a sudden, there's going to be clarity on exactly how to say it. And there will be people to receive it.
That's amazing, Kim, because that just what you just described happened to me on Saturday. Exactly that. And for the first time, I said, oh, this is what Kim's talking about. There's a download. Like it just came to me. And in that coming to me, I had so much clarity. And then it's like all of a sudden there was this rage, I'm going to say, of confidence. And it's like, oh, of course I can do that. And like within an hour and a half, I sent a message and say, yeah, I'll lead this group tomorrow. And I stayed in that confidence. And it's what you just spoke about. Thank you.
There's this, I mean, I call it like this, the breakthrough hit, like their addiction to breakthrough, that we'll read something or we'll get this aha, or we'll hear something that's aligned and we're like, oh my God. And we want to tell everyone, like we don't know how to receive. We don't know how to keep it. We don't know how to like play with it, indulge in it, experience it. It's such a big deal in business, because if you have that dynamic going on and then customers do come or clients do come, you will repel them because you don't know what to do with them. And we'll move into this guilt and doubt and unworthiness. And, all of this stuff will start coming up. So this is the exact same thing. And I did it too. And if I wouldn't have had the experience, as Erin says, if we wouldn't have to experience it to know what we know now, then I wouldn't be able to speak from that with such surety. But my greatest programs or messages have come through when I allow them to fulfill the cycle. And then I'm really super clear. Like Self-Healing Masters came through just in a waiting. I mean, I had an idea, I was kind of playing with it, and I just stayed and stayed and stayed. And then it was just like, oh my God, it's getting more brilliant. What am I going to do with this? Anything, Danielle, Erin, anything you want to add before we hop off?
I'd like to add about manifesting generators. So as a pharmacist, as a manifesting generator, it would have been useful 10 years ago, 15 years ago to know this information, because I'm very efficient. I can do a lot of things really fast, which is great for pharmacy because we are multitasking. But skipping steps was kind of my Achilles heel. It was like, oh my gosh, okay, you can't skip any steps, right? Because there's the patient, you could kill them every single step. Like I had to make sure it was the right drug, it was the right patient. Is it the appropriate dose? Is it the appropriate frequency? All of those things. I couldn't miss any steps. And so knowing that, like, that isn't like a personality flaw, it's, in my design, I just know to go back. And now I have a routine where I go back and double check my steps, which before I would double check myself. I thought I was, but like, again, I was skipping steps. And so now I have a routine. It's very much, and it is conditioning, but it's conditioning to be successful as a pharmacist. And so that was really useful to know that we do skip steps. And again, knowing that I wanted to do everything and I have these tasks that are unfinished. I used to think that was the personality trait. I'd beat myself up. So now I have more compassion, I guess, for myself. So I really enjoy that about human design. It's fun to explore, what's actually in the charts. So
yeah, it's interesting to just give yourself permission to be in that. And then you make bullet points, of course, and, to know what to do or what not to do. I mean, it's neuroplasticity. We can train ourselves. We can train our brain to be anything else, but it's like doing it from a place of desire and compassion, not from a place of bulldozing or conditioning. I think.
Right. And also if someone tries to hold it against me and, use it as like, oh, you're so, you didn't do this, you skipped this part, or, you go too fast, you do too many things. And it's like, okay, this is who I am. Love it or leave it. Like you get to decide.
You're so indecisive. You don't know what you want to eat or where you want to go or where you want to turn. Like so many trips, all I knew was I was turning left out of the driveway. And I had no idea until the next turn which way to go.
And this other thing is communicating. So I skip a lot of steps, I go fast, but I don't communicate what I'm doing. And I would I would trip me up, it would trip me up with relationships. And so just knowing that, okay, yes, I'm gonna go fast, I'm gonna skip steps, but the person who is, I'm working with or in a relationship with, if I just like communicate on what I'm working on and include them a little bit, then it saves me so much trouble in the long run. Saves me from
That's-
arguments and different things, miscommunication.
Yeah. That's a great point, because that's the issue with the manifester. The plain manifester is they're here to inform, but
Mhm.
then they don't inform the people. So like, in other words, I don't know, I heard a story of a husband and a wife or their partner in the house, and they were cooking or whatever. And the manifester like just realizes what they have to go out and do, but they don't inform the other person that they left, and they're looking for them all over the house because they didn't inform them. It's that kind of thing. And so it creates a lot of problems in relationships. So I love that you brought that up. And you guys do have like aspects from both, like I said, it's the 2 for 1. So you do have a little bit of that, and yet you still have to wait to respond. Matter of fact, there's a very teeny tiny percentage of humans that don't have to wait. It's a very tiny, whether you're waiting on an invitation, you're waiting on the moon, you're waiting to respond, whatever it is. That I think was the biggest awakening for me with human design, is how we make things happen. We try to make manifestation happen. We try to get to the goal or get to the end game. I see you shaking your head, Erin. You want to add to that?
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to just touch on, with the sacral authority. I think the biggest thing for people starting out with this is just learning to kind of tune into their gut. And when their gut says like, or to, even if they don't take that action in the beginning, to learn to go, oh, I see you, right? I'm not going to do this right now, but I see you. And then question themselves and say, why am I not acting on this? Like, what am I afraid of that I'm not acting on this knowing? Because it's a knowing that we deny because of conditioning. So I would say just to really start to tune in and be like, okay, I know that that's a no for me. And I'm still going to, like, telling the truth, right? I'm still going to decide to do this because I'm afraid. Because, right. And then telling why, and then just learning, to slowly start to get back into that, to where they're like, nope, this is a no for me, or yep, I'm going to do it, So, yeah.
Love that. Interesting point too, is like, as generators, we all have the sacral defined. So we all have that gut instinct. And then for some of us, we also have the spleen defined, or the will center defined. But when it's an emotional authority, emotional trumps. You have to wait, even though and what you're waiting for is time to pass so you can experience the high and the low, and the yes or no will not change. That's as close as we can get to being sure. Is there's already an answer. You're waiting through the high, you're waiting through the low. The answer does not change, and there is no more pressure. If there is pressure, guys, it's coming from somewhere else. If there is pressure, do not decide. Be very careful with that one. Anybody else want to add on to that? Got about 2 minutes.
Well, and Kim, with the emotional, aren't the waves different too? Like, some will peak a lot faster and then come down. You know what I mean? So I think that's important too.
The waves, it's like a cosmic joke. Like, because the waves are coming from the planets, from the environment, and from us. Like, it's a combination of stuff that's creating the waves. And the high is short-lived. The law is long. And so it's like, we do tend to get like, it's like, it'll never end. And you kind of go into the despair. And so it's like, I think that's the tricky part for the emotional. We could just talk strictly on just the emotional, and we probably eventually will. My goal for this was to bring in generators, manifestors, reflectors, projectors, and have the conversation just about that. We're going to eventually bring in profiles. So we'll have like all of the 2-4s on the call. We'll have all the 5-1s, all the 6-2s, to where we can, begin to share personal experience. And that's because Kim Gilry learns from personal experience. And so it's kind of like investigating, and exploring, so that we can show others that there is a way to relate that is better than what we've been taught. And it's coming from what you mentioned earlier, Erin, was this: I really want people to behave a certain way and to do a certain things. We all do.
Yeah.
Like if everybody would just listen to me, it would be so much better for all of us. That's what I think, right? That's what our mind thinks, is if they could just do what I need them to do. But I'm going to offer how much richer it is if we can just allow everyone to be who they are. That's like Skittles compared to brown M&Ms. Everyone behaving the way we want them to behave. That's the homogenization. That's the conditioning. But tasting the rainbow in the flavors from the emotional perspective, or from the manifestor perspective, or from the reflector's perspective, that's when it gets interesting. And we can take all the labels and the judgment and the control away, and we could all be in exploration and experience together.
Mm-hmm.
Especially for the kids. I really think that what we are experiencing with all of this emotional healing, the trauma recovery, all of the stuff that we're experiencing, is because we were shut down and turned off. Like Peggy said, we don't cry. We don't do that. We don't express ourselves. We don't think we're better than someone else. We don't even love ourselves, right? It's like this having to die to yourself to be accepted into the heavens kind of mentality. And once we can come to this realization, once we get through all the weeds, because we got a lot of weeds to go through. There are people who call us selfish and that we're not Christian, or that we're not believers in God, or whatever, all of the stuff. I've heard so much stuff, especially recently, that has come up about all this, because it's challenging the conditioned system. It's challenging the homogenization. So it's kind of ugly right now. We're watching all of these systems fall apart and break apart. And I think there's this fear that we're replacing God. And it's actually, what's happening is we're creating a deeper relationship with Source. We're creating a richer relationship with humans. Like it's actually the opposite, but I can understand. I can see the fear. I can see where it's coming from, because I was in that world. I understand it.
Yeah. Well, anything we don't know about, we're afraid of, right? There's fear attached, but human design, learning more about myself has made me a more kind, compassionate human being, right? Able to see that, no, we are all different and it's beautiful, So I think until you really kind of dip your toes in and experience it, you may have those fears, but anyone who has experienced it along with me, it's made their life so much richer, and the people around them have just benefited and had a much richer life. So.
Mm-hmm. Does everybody agree? I think we're all like,
yeah, I feel the same way. Not trying to get other people to be like me.
Yeah, it's so refreshing. It's like, thank goodness. Goodness, now I just have to undo this conditioning. Like, cool. I was wrong. That's awesome, right? Yeah.
For me, it's kind of like let it go and then allow.
Yeah.
And then that allowance, it's like it's so much better. So much better.
Yeah, it's like kicking your feet up and being like, oh, finally. Yeah. Yeah.
So good. All right. We're coming upon the last minute or so. So I'm going to just go around the room and just tell the audience who you serve. I'm going to have your contact information below, since you're all three or coaches or in this healing world. So I do want to leave a link so that they can find you, especially if they are like the same as you. Because that's kind of what Ross said, is like, we're going to find our people who we can relate to and who understand us. And those are the people that we'll work with. And I really want to encourage that, because I do think there's a deeper understanding. So if you take a sacral who's coaching, like say business coaching, and there's several emotional authorities in the room, and the sacral coach is saying that everyone should be decided within 3 minutes or they're not your client, they're putting that pressure on it. That's actually creating wounding and not allowing that person to determine who they really want to work with. So I think it's important that that is part of the conversation. So I'll start with Danielle, then Peggy, then Erin. You can just go right to the next one. If you want to just, who do you serve? What do you do?
Yeah, so I'm on a mission to help women create a healthier, happier, more beautiful life lives. I do that as a style coach and integrative life coach. And so I have a program, it's called Be Her, Be Here Now. And it allows you to be the woman that is the higher self, come back to yourself, basically. And the women that I love working with they are similar to me. So I'm 6'2", I have the hermit and the role model. So they are mostly holistic leaders, maybe in healthcare, and they're looking to market themselves online or put themselves out there in front of an audience, but they don't feel fully put together and confident just yet. Maybe it's in their body or how they're dressing. And so, we just have fun and we play with clothes, we play with body image. And yeah, so I just love any of those women that, maybe you're an emotional and you're indecisive. You can't decide what to wear and it's, taking up too much mental space. You have this huge impact that you want to go and contribute to the world. And maybe, you think clothes is not that important. I can help you with that, take that off your plate. And also you can discover, what your likes are, what your dislikes, and in the long run, figure out who you really are on the inside, because that's really what it's about. So that's who I love working with.
Thank you, Peggy.
Yep. So I help women reconnect to themselves through a spiritual journey, through the coaching skills that I've learned with Kim, and through earth-based rituals.
Mhm.
It's all about coming into nature to discover your true nature. Most of the women that I work with are, many of them are professionals trying to figure out who they really want to be and what they really want to do. And giving them that sacred space, to just be is really magical for them.
Thank you. Erin?
Yeah, I work with women who have just lost their sense of self, or who have never really known themselves. So I teach them how to empower themselves, because I don't think that we empower people. I think that we teach them how to empower themselves. And women with food and body image issues, self-esteem, those are my girls. So
Good. Thank you all for joining. So we'll have links below if you want to contact any of these, or you can come over to the More Than Mindset Facebook group. It's a free Facebook group. They're all there and they'll be tagged in the post that's sharing this video and the podcast. All right. That's a wrap, guys. Thanks for joining.
thanks.
Thank you so much. Fun conversation.
Yes, it was great. Thank you.